Hello, and welcome back to Herman's Hot Takes, Eyes of the Dragon, chapters 21 through 30. It's getting good, kids. It's getting good. All right, 21, 22, pretty short, easy chapters. We learned that dragon glass is some pretty serious poison. Like, that stuff is nasty. The way Flag has to hold it, do things with it. Don't want to touch it. Like, it's deadly. It's some deadly, deadly stuff. And chapter 22 is this like 2-paragraph flash forward. Flag walk into the room with a glass of wine, gives it to Roland. Roland's like, thanks, drinks it down. And we're like, wait, what happened? Did he just poison him? We don't know. We think so. So, of course, Stephen King being Stephen King, we can't just go linear and find out if he's poisoned or not. We got to get all this background information coming up. So 23, we talk about magic. And how, like, magic isn't like Harry Potter magic in this book. Magic isn't easy. You have to work at magic. It's hard. And how you just can't, like, say a word and a spell happens. And Flag has worked super, super hard to, have his magic. So that's all that 23 is about. And the one main thing that he can do, he can't be invisible, but he can dim himself. So when he walks at places, people are like suddenly feel this urge not to look or see him. So that's probably important because he talks about it for a pretty long time. Chapter 24 is, now we're flashbacking to more Thomas. We're getting more Thomas character development. So it's another time where Thomas says he hates Peter. The word hate, he had hatred for Peter comes in. 25 and 26 talk about how Flag has kind of realized if he gets Roland out of the way, he's stuck with Peter. If he gets Peter out of the way, he needs to make sure that Thomas is the king he needs, the king he can manipulate and make do horrible things. So it talks about how Flag befriends Thomas in 25 and 26. So he takes him around the castle, shows him secrets, kind of scary secrets, takes him up to the top of the tower for the super cool view, but then it's filled with bats. And eventually he takes him to this spot where they weave back through this secret passage, and he shows them how to get there. And where they are, they end up behind this wall where they can see through a peephole, he's cut out a hole they can see through, and they can see Roland in his den. And his den is like this huge room filled with all his animal trophies, like trophy heads, like animal heads, like, when you hang up a deer that you've killed, kind of thing. So it's got animal heads all around the room that Roland has killed. And one of the animal heads is the dragon he killed, whose name is Niner. So he's killed Niner, and you can see through, he's cut the hole behind the glass eye that's been put in for Niner. So you can see through the eyes of the dragon, which has been alluded to the 2 chapters before this at the end, like, Thomas is going to look through the eyes of Niner. Thomas is going to look through the eyes of the dragon. And we didn't know what that meant until we get to 26. And we're like, oh, he's literally looking through the eyes of the dragon at his dad. So he teaches Thomas how to spy on Roland at night. And every time he does it, though, take note, when he does it, Thomas gets a little sick. He gets a headache afterwards, stomach aches kind of thing every time he spies on Roland, it says. Probably, my thought is King is kind of showing that Thomas still has a conscience, like he knows right from wrong. And so sometimes when you do something really bad, you feel horrible, like physically horrible about it. It manifests that way. So I kind of think that King is trying to show us that maybe all hope isn't lost in Thomas. Like, he knows when he does bad things, so he gets headaches from it and feels badly about it. That's my thought. So we learn that Thomas spies regularly on Roland, and basically what he discovers is his dad is just like kind of a gross, silly old man. He's a silly, gross old man who like eats his boogers, pees in the fireplace, farts a lot. Like, he's just like, my dad's kind of gross. And one night he spies on him, and Roland is lit. Like, he is drunk. He's like almost pass out drunk. And he's screaming at the animal heads. He's talking to them, and he's like, kind of like old, regretting his life, like shouting regrets, and this is what I am, and this is what I become, and I'm this sad old man. Like, he recognizes how pathetic he is. And he walks up to the dragon, and he's shouting at Niner, the dragon head, And he and Thomas make eye contact because Thomas's eye is looking through the eye of the dragon. And Thomas kind of freaks out and he's like, oh, he's going to catch me. He found me. And Roland's so drunk, he doesn't even realize that it's a human eye behind there. So Thomas is so shaken by the encounter, he vows he's never going to spy again. Well, that lasts all of 1 chapter. Or 3 months, it says in the book. So for 3 months, he doesn't spy. And then one night, he's like totally compelled to go spy. So he looks through the dragon. He sees Peter and his dad having a glass of wine in this super touching moment. And we know Peter brings his dad wine every night. And they hug when he leaves and tell each other they love each other. And it's just kind of sweet. And again, it talks about Thomas's hatred and how upset he is by this. And so then he's getting ready to leave, Thomas. He's like, okay, and Flag comes in. Knock, knock, knock on the door. Flag comes in, brings his glass of wine, which we know from previous chapters has the dragon glass poison in it. And Thomas is watching this go down. And something in Thomas knows that his dad should not drink this. Like he's saying in his head, it's in italics, so we know it's a thought. Don't drink it, don't drink it, don't touch it. What are you doing? But he never says it. He doesn't shout it out, doesn't stop anything from happening. Too much of a coward. Doesn't do anything and watches his dad drink the drink and hears Flag make 2 toasts. He says to Peter and to the king. 2 different toasts. And Thomas doesn't know why, but he's like, that's not right. Those are 2 different toasts. We know why, because we know Flag is planning to get rid of Roland and Peter, and Peter's not the king. That's why he does 2 different toasts. But so Thomas watches this and then gets super duper sick, like so sick, leaves, goes back to his bedroom, can't handle anything. Like he's super, super sick. Chapter 30 then shows us Flag getting ready. This is where the good versus evil. Here we've got our fairy tale trope. Good versus evil. Flag is now pinning the blame. He's framing Peter. So we know why he left the one little piece of dragon glass sand, because he's going to poison the mouse with it. He's got this little envelope that he's like chewed up to make it look like the mouse ate it. He's got this box that he stole 10 years ago, and he didn't know why. He just was like one day, I think I'm going to steal that box. It's going to come in handy someday. Well, guess what it did? It's Peter's box that his mom gave him with his name on it, and he cried when he lost it. So he would have been about 7 when he lost it, and Flag stole it. And so he puts the dragon glass, the envelope that had the dragon glass in there, and the dead mouse by it, and he plants it in Peter's room, like in with his hidden treasures, so they can find it and Peter can be accused, right, of planting the dragon glass and killing Roland. And King describes that night, because this is evil at work. So King describes the night that Flag is framing Peter as, because it's the same night that he poisons Roland. He describes the night as like the wind is howling and wives are at their houses saying there's like witches around, and men are like, oh, you're silly. And then a dog gives birth to a 2-headed puppy, and he's describing all of this night as just being dark and scary. And yes, because evil is at work. So the background is pretty evil. That follows in with our fairy tale tropes kind of going on there. One quick thing for you to notice. I don't know if you're getting sick of it. The endings of these chapters are killing me. They're either like, oh, what do you think, reader? Or this is what I think, reader. What do you think? Or they're huge, major spoiler alerts. And you're like, what the heck, King? Thanks for like ruining the rest of the book, even though it doesn't quite ruin the rest of the book. But sometimes I'm like, I don't need to know all that. I kind of want to learn it. For example, at the end of chapter 29, this is what he says. At the end of 29, this is when Thomas has just seen his dad drink the wine, and he goes back to his room and he gets sick. And he says, before he was well again, his father was dead, his brother imprisoned in the room at the top of the needle, and he was a boy king at the age of barely 12. Thomas the Lightbringer, he was dubbed at the coronation ceremonies. And who was his closest advisor? You guess. What? All right, so now we know. Roland's going to die from the poison. No one's come to save him. Peter's getting thrown in jail. That's the second time we've seen a spoiler that Peter's getting thrown in the Needle. This big tower. We talked about the Needle. It's this huge tower in the center of the square. The Needle. And we know Thomas is now going to be king with Flag advising him. Well, maybe I don't have to read the rest of the book. Now I know what happens. Do I, though? Do I know what happens? I guess we'll find out. I have gotten some viewer questions have come in to me. One was, how many cups of coffee do you drink when you make these videos? Well, it depends on what day I'm making the video, kids. So if it's on a weekday, I've had 1.5 cups of caffeinated coffee because I cut back. If it's a weekend, if it's a Saturday, chances are I've had a lot because I usually meet my parents for breakfast and my whole family, and I need a lot of coffee to get through those breakfasts. So I've probably had quite a few. And if it's a Sunday, like today, I've probably had about 4. I just finished number 4. So there's your answer. Keep the viewer questions coming. If you have questions about Eyes of the Dragon, send those my way. You can always submit your viewer questions in the hallway when you see me. I'll be happy to answer them. And we have a special visitor today. I gotta turn my camera. There he is. The back of Raymond.